Master, in this final part, we enter the era of the later Vedantic masters, from the 13th to the 17th centuries. What defined this period?
This was an era of intense consolidation. The Vedantins had to defend Shankara's pure monism against the highly sophisticated logical attacks of the Nyaya and the rising power of Vaishnava dualists like Ramanuja and Madhva.
Did they just repeat the old arguments?
No, they pushed the philosophy to its absolute limits, culminating in some of the most radical theories of subjective idealism ever conceived in Indian thought.
Before we meet the later masters, how did Shankara himself deal with the physics of the Vaisheshika school?
Shankara used their own physics against them. Vaisheshika claimed that atoms combine to form dyads, but the atomic measure does not transfer to the dyad. The dyad creates a totally new spatial measure.
Why is that significant for Vedanta?
Because the opponents argued that pure Brahman could not produce an impure world. Shankara replied, "You yourselves admit that a cause can produce an effect with totally different qualities. Therefore, pure Brahman can indeed project an impure universe."
Did later writers continue this attack on Vaisheshika physics?
Yes, Anandajnana, in the 13th century, wrote the Taka Samgraha. It was a merciless, chapter-by-chapter demolition of every Vaisheshika category: substance, quality, action, space, and time.
What was his ultimate conclusion?
He concluded that none of these physical categories can be rationally defined. Since they are neither truly real nor absolutely non-existent, their material cause must also be an indefinable illusion, avidya resting on Brahman.
How did these later thinkers define Masaya and God? Was it uniform?
No, it evolved. An important 12th century text, the Prakatarthasiksvarana, formalized a specific reflection theory. It stated that Maya is the positive material cause of all existence.
How did it explain God and the individual?
When pure Brahman is reflected in the totality of Maya, it appears as Ishvara, the cosmic God. When reflected in the fragmented, individual mind, it appears as the Jiva, the suffering human soul.
What about the relationship between the perceiver and the perceived world? Did anyone tackle that logically?
Yes. Six Muktatmen, in his famous Ishtasiddhi, analyzed this deeply. He proved that the seer and the seen cannot be identical because the world is changing and the seer is not.
But they must be different, right?
He proved they cannot be entirely different either. Because if they were absolutely different, the seer could never connect with or illuminate the object. Since the world is neither identical nor different, it must be an unsubstantial illusion.
How did Vimuktatman explain this relationship simply?
He used a beautiful metaphor. He said the world is like a painting. The canvas is pure consciousness. The paint itself is Maya. And the picture drawn on it is the world appearance.
So the canvas is unaffected by the paint?
Exactly. The canvas is not modified into the picture, it simply provides the ground. Even if you wash away the painting of the world, the pure canvas of Brahman remains perfectly intact.
Master, earlier we discussed how the mind flows out to objects. Did the later masters refine this physical mechanic of perception?
Yes. Ramadvaya, in his Vedanta Kaumudi, elaborated on it. He explained that the mind, made of pure light stuff, is propelled by a person's moral destiny, adrishta.
It physically moves.
Yes, it shoots out like a long ray of light, enveloping the object. This mental ray, the vritti, tears away the veil of ignorance over the object, allowing the pure consciousness to illuminate it.
Who made these complex ideas accessible to the broader public?
That was Vidyaranya in the 14th century. His famous verse text, the Pancharashi, is a masterpiece of clarity. He taught that consciousness is a steady lamp that never rises and never sets, even in deep sleep.
And he emphasized the blissful nature of the self.
He did. He noted that we love nothing more than our own self, proving the self is pure bliss. We only chase worldly objects because Maya obscures this internal bliss, making us search for it outside.
As we reach the 16th century, did thinkers like Nrsimhasrama Muni add new definitions?
Nrsimhasrama focused heavily on defining mithyatva, or falsehood. He defined it strictly as the non-existence of a thing in the very location where it appears to exist.
Like seeing silver where there is only a shell.
Exactly. The silver appears on the shell, but it is utterly non-existent there. Similarly, the entire universe appears to exist within Brahman, but in reality, it is absolutely non-existent within Brahman.
Were there any historians among them who tracked all these different Vedantic schools?
Yes, the legendary polymath Appaya Dikshita. He wrote the Siddhantalesha Samgraha, which brilliantly collected and categorized all the divergent views on Maya, God, and the soul that had evolved over 8 centuries.
I heard he also wrote on other religions.
He did. He was a devout worshipper of Shiva. He gracefully reconciled his personal theology by claiming that the grace of the personal God, Shiva, is what eventually leads a soul to desire the ultimate, formless monism of Vedanta.
Master, you mentioned extreme subjective idealism earlier. Who finalized that doctrine?
That was Prakashananda in his Siddhanta Muktavali. He rejected the mainstream Vedantic view that objects exist independently in the world before the mind touches them.
So if a tree falls in a forest and no one sees it, it doesn't happen.
To him, there is no forest. He denied Ajanyata Sattva, the existence of unknown objects. If an object is not currently being perceived, it simply does not exist. The entire universe is nothing but cognition.
This sounds exactly like the Buddhist idealists, the Yogyaaca Ras.
It is remarkably similar. This doctrine is called Drishti Shrishtivada, perception is creation. The very act of looking is what creates the object. The world has no independent physical substratum.
How did he prove the object and the awareness are not different?
He argued that to prove an object is different from your awareness of it, you would have to step outside your own awareness to check. Since you can never step outside your own consciousness, objective reality is an unprovable myth.
If perception is creation, how does Prakashananda explain causation? Is Brahman still the cause of the world?
No. He takes the ultimate radical step. He says applying causality to Brahman is a mistake. Causality requires a duality of cause and effect. Since only Brahman exists, there can be no causality.
So even Vivartavada, the theory of illusory appearance, is rejected?
Yes. He says the theory of Sixvarta is just a teaching tool for beginners. In absolute truth, there is no cause, no effect, no creation, and no world. There is only the self.
Did mainstream Vedanta have a champion to defend it against the dualists during this time?
Yes, perhaps the greatest defender of all, Madhusudana Saraswati. He wrote the monumental Advaita Siddhi. His life's mission was to crush the logical attacks of Vyasatirtha, the great champion of the Madhva dualist school.
So it was a war of logic.
An epic war. Vyasatirtha had used Navyanyaya logic to attack Shankara's monism. Madhusudana mastered that exact same logic to systematically destroy the dualist arguments and restore Advaita to supremacy.
If Madhusudana was such a hardcore monist, proving the world was false, did he reject religion and prayer?
This is the most beautiful paradox of his life. While he was a fierce monist in philosophy, he was an ecstatic, weeping devotee of Lord Krishna in his personal religion.
How could he worship a god he proved was an illusion?
He wrote the Bhakti Rasayana, proving that realizing the Absolute does not destroy devotion. The highest sage, knowing the world is a dream, can still passionately love the dream form of the divine.
Looking back, Master, it is incredible how this single philosophy evolved over 1,000 years.
It is the great unbroken thread of Indian thought. It began with the mystical visions of the Upanishads, was systematized by Badarayana, and ignited into a philosophical wildfire by Sankara.
And his disciples forged it into steel.
Yes. Whether through the epistemological brilliance of Padmapada, the destructive logic of Sriharsha, or the radical idealism of Prakashananda, the goal remained exactly the same.
To prove that only the self is real.
Precisely. To strip away the veil of avidya, to silence the noise of the dualistic world, and to leave the seeker standing in the pure, limitless, self-luminous bliss of Brahman. Tat Tvam Asi. That art thou.